Okay, welcome to the Relationship Podcast. No, the Relationship Experience. There we go. We've got our professionals in the building. We have got Krista.
Let's go.
We have got Adrienne.
Yay.
And I'm your host, Sarah J. And we kick off every single one of these episodes with a question. So, Krista, I would love for you to hit us with something that everybody can answer.
Have you ever done something to like get someone's attention and then afterwards you were like, that was so lame, that was so dumb, but I can't believe, like, instant regret, right?
Yes.
Like, I was trying to impress this person and it backfired.
Okay, I have one because this is actually a cousin that I thought was really, really cool, and I used to talk to myself a lot. Like I had a whole I was in the theater and I would create these scenarios, and so I have a whole on play that I am talking to myself, and my cousin comes out and he catches me talking to myself, and I just said, oh, I've got this big play that I'm in, and I'm just working on my script and stuff like that. So I was just trying to play it off like I was really cool, and he knew I was lying. It was very embarrassing.
Oh.
And I never got to live that down, but yeah. kind of not too serious, but yeah. I didn't stop doing that because then I got into radio, so
There you go.
I never
There
stopped
you
talking
go.
to myself.
There you go. It helped out. It worked out in the long run.
Yes, for sure.
So for me, it's funny. I went to camp. I think I was in 7th grade, and there was this girl that I really liked. And I was like, you know what? I was like, I'm gonna jump off this cliff to impress her, because all my brothers and his friends, again, the older guys, they were doing it. And so middle schoolers weren't allowed to jump off this one, but I was like, I'm gonna be rebellious. I'm gonna be the only middle schooler to do it. And I ended up jumping off this cliff at Boulder's Cave when the river was running, and this river started taking me. So it was kind of embarrassing. I was trying to impress her, and it ended up like taking me because I was all skinny and small. Yeah, my brother went down and just got me, and yeah, it was kind of embarrassing, but it was funny. I was trying to impress her, and it backfired. Yeah.
There you go. Mine was really short and simple. And like our senior year of high school, there was a guy who was a drummer, and I thought he was so cute. So I decided I would attempt guitar. I was gonna learn to be a musician, but I didn't know what I was doing. I had zero. And so I brought the guitar to school for guitar club. And he was like, oh, like, what kind of guitar do you play? And he sees it, and he's like, oh, you play acoustic? And I went, no, the wooden one.
Oh, no. Oh, Krista, that's wonderful.
And the funny part is I didn't know at the time. I had totally embarrassed myself, because he just looked at me and went, okay, and like walked away. And it wasn't until like months later that I learned that the wooden one was the acoustic. And I think back and I'm like, you're such a moron.
That's funny.
And I'm like, no, the wooden one.
Do you have triggers every single time you see a guitar? You're kind of like, oh.
No, I mean, it brings back that memory, and I'm like, you're such a moron.
Oh my.
The wooden one.
The wooden one. Whatever the wooden one is.
Whatever
right?
the wooden, I play the wooden one.
No, not that one. Oh my gosh. I think everybody can relate. We would love for you to share yours in the comments as well, because everybody has had that moment where you just think somebody is so cool and you want to be so cool around them, and because you're trying to be so cool, you almost drown yourself.
Yeah, that's true.
Or you misinterpret what the instrument is. But the people that are meant for you will eventually come right back to you. So that's a good thing to know. Yes?
It's true.
Absolutely.
If it's meant to work out, it'll work out even through your crazy and maybe bad choices.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So each week we talk about really, really cool things, because everybody is in relationships 24/7. We're trying to get to know ourselves and trying to get to know other people. So this lesson is going to be all about what?
Intimacy. Yeah. So we'll talk about intimacy today. Super amazing topic, because a lot of people, when they hear the word intimacy, especially when you don't learn a lot of relationships, they immediately think physical intimacy, right?
Right.
We're in the classroom. What's intimacy? Sex?
Right.
Well, no, there's a lot more that goes to intimacy.
Okay. So if you would be so kind, give us a full definition of intimacy.
So intimacy could be broken down into 6 different parts, right? And I can name a couple off the top of my head. Emotional, physical, verbal, mental,
spiritual,
and
social.
Perfect. Yeah. So all those 6 different parts when you're in a relationship, you got to be intentional on working on all of those parts, right? And so that's intimacy is in the Latin. It's described into intimacy, like see the deepest parts of me.
Oh.
You get to see the whole me, the real me, and so there's such a um, deep understanding of who you are, and in order for a person to get to see, like I always give this example, social media. So I'll tell the students, a lot of young adults are willing to let their partners see their body before they ever even let them see their heart. And so intimacy is just letting them see other parts of themselves before they get to see that physical aspect, right?
Yeah, it's letting people see all of you, not just a part of you. And then waiting until someone has earned the right also to see you. I think a lot of times we give intimacy away too freely, and we're like, okay, I'll give you my physical body, or I'll give you my heart, or my emotions, when you haven't shown any interest in respecting me or deserving of my trust. And we actually talk about, I paint this bullseye on the whiteboard, and we talk about how you're the center, the most middle part. It's small, right? And not a lot of people can fit where you belong, because not a lot of people should. And there are different levels of that. And so as you go to the gas station, you meet someone there, you meet a stranger. That person doesn't deserve your whole story and doesn't deserve all of you, because it's a casual interaction. But there are times that people will be like, let me tell you everything about me, when they haven't earned that right. And it's okay to interact with them, and you have a relationship with them, and you're going to come and go, and they've deserved that much about you. And then it keeps getting more and more closer. So like from the casual stranger, it gets to someone who may know your biodata, right? Your teacher, your landlord, your boss. They know the basics about you, but they don't know maybe the emotions of you or the history. And then it continues to get more and more intimate until you get to that smallest part where that person knows you in the 6 areas. But the reason it's so small is because it shouldn't be a lot of people there. Really, there's really should be one person with you in that circle who knows you physically, mentally, emotionally, socially, spiritually. And I don't remember the 6th one. Verbally, thank you.
Okay.
And a lot of times we flip it and we make that circle really big, and we just want everyone to be there with us.
Right.
But that's unhealthy, because you're giving too many people a part of you.
Okay. Gosh, so that's rough, because I feel like we all fall into that spot where everybody, excuse me, you give yourself to somebody with the expectation that I'm opening myself up in a way they don't know that you just gave away a piece of information. You're expecting the same thing from them. You may or may not get that, depending on what type of relationship that is. But so how do you work on creating this tiny little spot that you are becoming intimate with yourself, and you know yourself? Because you will have a lot of struggles if you're trying to give yourself to other people if you don't even know yourself intimately. How do you go about that?
Yeah, so one thing I always tell students, you got to date yourself first. So yeah, find out what you like. Go out and explore. It's important for you to not just stay in, and you got to go out. You got to dare to be brave, like we talked about in that one episode. And I think it's hey, I didn't find out I like poetry until I began to write, because I was never a writer. I started writing. I started listening to a couple guys like Joshua Bennett, Rudy Francisco, and I was like, man, they're really inspiring. And so then I began to start to like poetry, but I would never went down that lane if I wouldn't have hung out with people that liked that.
So being aware of the things that spark joy inside of you.
Spark joy. There you go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I mean,
cool.
It's getting to know yourself first in all these different areas, and then finding someone who would complement those areas, I think.
I also, I love that. I agree with that 100%. I also think a healthy dose of self-respect. In the sense of you're worth it. We tell our students, and this applies to anyone listening, even if you're not listening, it applies, but we use this acronym VIEW, which stands for valued, important, equal, and worthy. And we tell all the students, like, remember, it starts with your view on life, that no matter what happens, you are valued, important, equal, and worthy. And when you have that perspective of, I deserve respect, and I deserve that if I'm going to let someone see a part of me, that they treat that part of me with respect, and it doesn't get misused or abused or used against me. And when you have that self-respect and you go into a relationship with that, you're going to be a little bit more cautious about who gets to see this part, and also treat the other person who is showing themselves to you with that same care. Not everyone deserves all of you. Not everyone can handle all of you, but everyone deserves the real you.
Exactly.
And that's okay. And I think we just need to be okay with that. We live in a very sharing culture, right?
Yeah.
We're connected to everything 24 hours a day, and everyone can share any moment. But that's okay. But look at the backlash it can cause sometimes when we overshare. There are certain things that should be special and valued and meant for certain people.
And I think definitely social media is kind of blurring all of those lines about what is, how much of your relationship should you be sharing, how soon, and all of those things. And everybody's got a different line.
Exactly. You just hit the nail on the head.
Ooh.
Yeah, we actually talk about that specifically. We say, "Where's your line?" And when it comes, we talk about it when it comes to physical intimacy, right? Like there's different progressions. Some people kissing, some people hand holding, goes all the way to sexual intercourse. Like, where's your line when it comes to how close do you want to be with somebody? And everyone's line is different, and you need to know where your line is so that you don't end up with regret. Because what happens is if you don't draw that line and you don't know where your boundary is, and you end up in a situation that may push you outside your comfort zone, and then you look back and go, ooh,
Gosh, dang it.
Yeah.
I like to use my husband as an example because he is very, he will go a long time without eating. And then there is a moment where he flips into a different person, and he is not very nice. And the things that come out of his mouth, he doesn't mean them, but at this point he hasn't eaten and he's like raging. And so that's the same type. You have to know yourself, and you have to feed the kindness and all of this stuff, because if you don't know where your line is and you're never feeding yourself, you're going to say really not nice things and not mean them, but people don't know that about you. They don't know that you're
or make a choice that you didn't probably think through.
Yeah.
Like you're going to end up, you may end up in a situation that you're like, ooh, if I had thought this through, I wouldn't have chosen this, but here I am. And it's because I didn't know where my line was.
And to not beat yourself up on those situations, because we all, every single day, come into moments in our lives where we have a choice and we go with our gut, or we totally disregard our line. And then you learn from these things, and hopefully, you're able to pivot. But either way, you have to learn from all of these things. Nothing is a mistake if you're learning from it.
Yeah. And part of it is you may not know that was a line until it actually happens.
Ooh, there you go. Yeah, how can you know your lines if they haven't been even tested? Oh my gosh. All right, so we've defined intimacy, and then now that we're talking about lines, you allowed somebody to get past your line. Let's talk about the sexual side of it. When you have let somebody get past your line, there's something called sexual regret. And that's a real thing. Can we dive into that?
Absolutely. Yeah, so sexual regret, that's someone going past that boundary, that line. And we always reiterate this, like, you got to know your line and your boundary so that allows you to know how important and valuable you are. And when that line is crossed, that just means that person doesn't really value you or doesn't think you're important.
I think you should repeat that again, because for a 13, 14, 15-year-old, you've got your hormones going, you are wanting to be accepted, you have somebody who is in your purview and they're making you feel really special and they're saying something. You have got to decide what your line is, and the moment that it is crossed, you have to figure out what to say. Do you have some suggestions on words? Because I think sometimes people have that, the line has been crossed, they're so shocked that they just go into silence and they don't really know, but you have to say something. So what's a good thing to say?
For sure.
Well, we do talk about tell the students like how to say no. Like, how do you know where your line is and communicate where your line is when it comes to physical intimacy? And I think a lot of it is with young people, especially like at that age, 12 to 15 or even a little bit older, is you may not realize that your line is being crossed because it may be a first encounter. Like, you're like, I didn't know this would lead to this. And a lot of it's just lack of experience. So we tell them, like, don't put yourself in high risk situations. Like, don't put yourself in a place where it could possibly lead to these things. And if you feel tempted to be alone or go to a party where you don't know anyone or drugs or alcohol involved, like, don't hesitate to say no. And if no is a struggle, suggest something else. Say like, hey, how about instead of the party, let's go to the movie?
Yeah.
Or instead of doing that, let's do this. And offer an alternate experience that is still just as fun, still allows you to be with that person without putting yourself at a high risk for even having to deal with your line.
Mm-hmm. And I think it, like we've talked before, having that trusted adult or that trusted parent, somebody in your life that you can talk to in those situations where maybe you have said no and they keep pushing a little bit and they're kind of making you feel like maybe I'm making the wrong decision. Nope. Those are those beautiful moments where you are standing your ground, you know what your line is, and you've got somebody in your life that doesn't have any lines, and they want you to participate in having no boundaries. And we don't want that.
Yeah, and it's always important, like, when you begin to date at first, to communicate what that line is. Hey, you know what? First 9 months, the furthest I'm willing to go is cuddling. And then if they try to...
Cuddling?
Yeah, if they try, then that might not be the right person for you, because they're not going to respect you and value you for the first 9 months.
You're not going to be able to break them down too. I'm letting you know right now. They will break you down before you break them down. So just move them along. Move along and get to another one. You don't want that stress in your life. You don't need it.
Yeah. So you got to look for someone who values you and respects your boundary. And you also got to communicate it ahead of time, because then when it's happening, it's not fair to that other person if you haven't communicated to them either, right?
Yeah. Afterwards, you hold it against them because you didn't have the conversation.
And now you've got this regret that you're... So how do you function with this? I mean, because your body is a really, really special, sacred place. And until you've allowed somebody to cross a line, you don't know what that feels like. You can put definitions on it, but every single person, it's sensitive to them. Mm-hmm. So somebody has crossed that line. They're dealing with sexual regret. How do we do it? What do we do with that emotion? That's a powerful emotion that can shape you for the rest of your life.
Well, I think it's very important to define that sexual regret is not sexual assault.
Correct.
Because that can happen. You can regret sexual assault where you have become a victim of a crime.
Right.
And there is regret tied to that. But sexual regret is willingly making a choice to engage and then regretting
it was consensual at the time.
Yes.
That is a huge thing, because I'm seeing this more and more with comedians, and I'm just going to use that as people out there have been accused of things where both parties were into it. They didn't like what happened. They felt a little like, gosh, I wish I wouldn't have done that. That is different. You did not get sexually assaulted. You have some regret.
You have sexual regret.
Yeah, you allowed your boundaries to get crossed, or what? Who knows? Because there's been a lot of interesting cases out there. But that's a huge deal. Sexual regret, totally different.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And so we like to say, for any students who are victims of sexual assault, like that is not your fault, and that
never
you should never have had that happen to you, and there will be a regret tied to that. But we're separating these out because you're willingly, consensually making a choice and regretting it. And there are resources out there for if you've made that choice and you're like, what do I do now? Well, the greatest part is you can move your line. So maybe if in a prior relationship you were like, man, we had sex and it ruined a relationship, and that's not where I want to be. I'd rather do something different. When you get into the next relationship, you can say, hey, I may have had sex before, but my line's back up here. And I need you to respect that because of this. So you can move your line. That's a big thing we tell.
That's a huge thing. Does not matter if you have already had sex and you have decided that you don't want to do that anymore. That's beautiful. You go for that. And if you come across somebody that's just like making fun of it or trying to make you feel bad about that decision, that is not a person that you want in their life, because again, they don't know their self-worth and they are taking you down with them, and you do not want to be in that. And that's not a knock on them. They're on their own journey. You don't need to have that clouded up in your business. Yes? Okay, good. I like this stuff. So what are some tips that you two could give us for true intimacy, that healthy intimacy that we're looking for?
I think some tips we can give is maybe let's share some things that we do, like in our relationships, kind of a thing, right? One thing is continually being intentional and getting to know your partner. So setting some time aside to maybe like what we do is date nights. Hey, we're gonna take a day where we just kind of put everything on hold and we get to just talk and get to know each other, have fun. We do more personality like tests to get to know each other in different areas and ways. And that's some things that we do. We read books together. We read a devotional together. We read couples books together, and we just learn a lot more about each other than we thought we knew. So.
And if you would, are you okay to say, and I don't want to put you on blast,
Yeah.
but you and your wife have gone through some counseling.
Yeah.
So if there's somebody out there who's like, man, Adrian's just seems like the prototype.
Yeah.
This is a lot of work and education that you
Yes.
have gained over the years, and this is the result
Yeah.
of doing the work.
Absolutely. Yeah, we went through marriage counseling, and then we're gonna have Azariah, our little 9-month-old, and we took parenting counseling because we were having conversations and we were clashing heads, and we're like, no, this is the way we're gonna raise him. No, this is okay. We need counsel. We need help. We need a third. Yeah, and so it's just continuing investing. I think in every area. Those 6 different areas that Krista talks about.
Yeah.
I think every relationship is very unique.
Mm-hmm.
And so discovering who you guys are as a couple, and I heard someone say this week, and I really love how they said it. They've been married for over 40 years, and they'd asked him, like, well, what's the secret? And she's like, well, we've had 6 different marriages in 40 years.
Ooh.
And I loved thinking of marriage like as a season or a period of time. And, you know, there's the pre-kids, the during the kids, the after kids, maybe the stressful time or the great time of vacation. And I was like, that's such a great time to think about that and how that applies to intimacy. Because early in my marriage, my husband and I, we were separated due to COVID. We got married right before COVID, and then he was stuck in Kenya. I was here for a period of time. So we had a long distance marriage, which is weird.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was a different level. We couldn't be physically intimate.
Mm-hmm.
So we had to be emotionally intimate and mentally intimate. And so that looked different for that season of our marriage. And then when everything ended and COVID was closed and we could be back together, then the new season of our marriage began. And so I think not looking back at the past and going, well, we were greatly intimate then, what's wrong now? And just looking at it and going, this is a different form of who we are.
Mm-hmm.
And how can we grow ourselves in intimacy now?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe your partner isn't going to read books, and that's okay. But just doing activities together matters. Find out what you guys like, and if you like 2 separate things, participate with the other person's thing. Be willing to be there, and they be willing to be with you. My husband and I really love thrifting. That's a big thing for us. So like date night is like, what kind of deal can you get? We love eating.
Yeah.
Big food people. And so finding those things that we like together. I love movies. He can't stand movies. But he will try to watch them with me. And he's a reader, so I'll read with him. So it's making intentionality with each other to grow that intimacy. And if you feel like maybe I don't feel as close to you in this area, talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, don't be afraid to be like, man, I really feel like we haven't been emotionally close lately. What's going on? Oh, it's probably stress, or it could be lots of things. Have the conversation. Don't avoid it, because you're stuck with that person. Like,
you chose to be stuck with this person.
Yeah, you're choosing to be with them. So make the intentionality to see what's going on. And a lot of times we invest in other people outside our partner, and it's easier, right? It's easier to be like, oh, what's going on with my coworker or my friend? Because with my partner, I actually have to. It's going to cost a part of me.
Exhausting sometimes.
Yeah.
Investing in intimacy for them costs a part of you as well.
Absolutely.
And so, but it's the most important relationship you could have. It is your most intimate, and it's worth it. And so we tell people, figure it out what works for you, as long as it's healthy.
Yes.
For your marriage or your dating relationship or whatever relationship you have, as long as it's healthy. There's a lot of things out there that'll say, try this. It may not be healthy. Figure out what's healthy for you guys. And
that could be its own podcast right there. Figuring out what's healthy for you. I love that. The seasons of a marriage, the seasons of any relationship, because we grow as we get older and we have these life experiences. And so you are definitely going to not be the same people when you started your relationship as you are now. And if you are, both of you have chosen not to talk to each other and to communicate, because if you don't ask them the questions, you could get into a habit of assuming that you know. You don't know. I didn't know a lot of things about my husband, and I was making up so my husband has diagnosed anxiety. and I am a host of events. Like, so I don't have an issue going out in public, but our masks are completely different when we go out in public. So learning how to appreciate the differences in your relationship. And I try really hard to, if my husband says something random that he likes, I have like a running list of all of those random things. So that way, when it is time to give a gift or do something, I know exactly what he's wanting instead of guessing or getting into the bad habit of buying something that I would like for him, or instead of pushing, let's go to the movie theater. I mean, one, it's expensive. No knock to our movie theaters trying to make their stuff, but you get the snacks and all that stuff. And it's way more fun for us to get all our snacks in and have that intimate movie at home. And so learning to be okay with not giving away some of the things that you love the most, but being able to figure out a new, healthier way for both of you to enjoy it. And it's those are the, and the more you do it, the more you practice these things, man, your relationship, it's like you level up, you become closer. And yes, you're gonna have arguments and you're gonna have total disagreements, and there's gonna be things that for your whole relationship, it's like, that's you and this is me, but those are okay things, and you don't want to have a twin for a partner.
That's good.
Get a best friend.
I think another important thing to add is being okay if you miss the mark. And a lot of times I know as a wife, if I'm like, I'm trying my best, and then he's like, I don't know what you're doing, and I'm like, oh, I failed. And you might want to retreat or beat yourself up, but we're not gonna get it right. We're with completely different people, and it's okay to not always get it, but to put in the effort and never stop trying. I think that's a big thing. Never stop trying to love that person, to invest in your relationship. And if you don't get it right the first time, try another way, but never stop trying.
That's perfect.
It is.
Never stop trying.
Never stop trying. Both sides, please.
Yes,
you want to make it work. It really does matter. And I'm sure we'll go into all of that if one side's trying and another side's not trying. So we've talked about defining intimacy, sexual regret, creating true intimacy. And now the question is, what are some risky situations for physical intimacy that take place before you're ready?
So some of the things we talk about in the classroom are maybe going to that kickback or that party, right? Putting yourself in
that first
situation.
party you've been invited to.
Yeah. I remember when I went to Davis, there was this, I don't know, some kid printed out these flyers of a party, and they're supposed to be private because you got security there and police there and stuff. And so one student ended up like throwing it on the ground in the courtyard. Police picked it up.
Oh, no.
They didn't say anything. They act like nothing was happening. But I didn't go to this party. But I know a lot of people went. A lot of people were drinking, smoking, all that stuff. That's a setup for, right, someone to black out and probably get sexually assaulted. And so putting yourself in that situation, that's what it looks like. Also legally, right? Because if you have a senior with the freshman, that could be like a legal, there could be legal ramifications to that. And
regardless if both parties are like, I was cool with this, the age matters. Age
does matter. And not only that, but then the police showed up, and the police showed up. They were like, they did a little sneak attack. They got the guy and a couple other people in trouble. And so there's a lot that goes to it, and you're just setting yourself up for pretty much for failure. So it's important to have a plan in mind.
I was really appreciating how Adrian just revealed his age by saying they handed out flyers for a party. I was like, paper invites?
That's,
wow, buddy.
It was not through Snapchat.
No. I was like, wow, that I didn't hear anything after that because I was really impressed. No, I'm kidding.
I went to Davis too, so I can see those flyers just all over the courtyard. That's amazing.
Sorry, I'm just teasing you. I'm older than you, so I have nothing to say. I'm much, much older.
I don't know why this guy did it like that.
But anyway. But
lesson learned.
Right? Yeah.
Snapchat it next time. No.
We're not giving you ideas.
No.
Yeah, don't do it. Don't do it. You can still get caught. Just so you know. We'll talk about that in a later episode. But I think we have a whole list. And we asked the students, like, if you were caught in this situation, why would this put you at risk? Like drugs and alcohol. is a great way to be put at risk because you lose your inhibitions.
Mm-hmm.
Dating someone significantly older, if you're in high school and they're in college,
Mm-hmm.
and it's because maybe they have different experiences than you, they're more comfortable with different things that you're not comfortable with, so they can push you beyond a line that you're ready for.
155,027 times billion%. If you have somebody that is older than you, they have already experienced things that you have not experienced. If they are over 21 years old and they are showing interest in you, that is a red flag. Red flag, red flag. Doesn't matter if OGs of the past, well, we were together, we have a 40-year age gap, times change. We learn things about ourselves and definitely I do not feel like you are some incredible person because you have an older person that is speaking to you. Something has glitched in them and they are not wanting to deal with people that are their own age.
And there's difference between 30 and 35
Mm.
and 15 and 20.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a maturity that comes with age. It doesn't mean that all people who are older are mature, but with age, you should have progressional maturity. And
We hope, yeah.
We hope you do.
Yeah.
And so there's all sorts of things, like putting yourself alone with somebody, with no one else around for an extended period of time, pushing your line to be more physically intimate. You're okay with kissing, cuddling, maybe even touching over the clothes. Those things can progress a lot quicker because of chemicals. We talked about that. The love chemicals go in your brain, and all of a sudden you're not seeing clearly.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're like, how did we get here? Well, because you allowed yourself to go there, and it progresses very, very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And then also understanding that it's different between female and male, and what sexually arouses you. And for a girl, she may not be aroused, but for a guy, he's fully aware of what's going on, and he's heading down that track fast.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think being aware of that really, really helps.
Oh gosh, yeah, we definitely would put the list. We'll put the list on the bottom of this thing, because the list goes on and on. I remember going to my very first party in high school, and I didn't drink or anything, so I was tipsy, and there was a guy he was giving me the eyes, and I was like, yeah, but I wasn't making out with people or anything. I mean, he got on top of me, and I thought, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And he had a moment was like, oh, I can't do that, because he knew I was younger than him, but you will get into these situations, you don't even realize you are already past all of your lines, and it's okay at any moment to say, nope, I'm not good, gotta go. Don't give them a reason. You don't need to explain yourself at all. Don't worry about rumors or people saying stupid things, because that is another portion of being young and being at parties, and especially with the social media aspect. Whatever you do is going to be misconstrued by outside people for different reasons and things like that. It's nuts. Being young is nuts.
Yeah.
But it's also beautiful and wonderful, and you want to have these experiences. So definitely knowing your line and making sure that anytime that there's alcohol involved and you decide that you're going to be drinking, you have changed your chemicals in your brain, and you are not making decisions like you normally do. And if you feel like, oh, I've got that liquid courage, oh honey, that's not the kind of liquid courage we're looking for.
Nope.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So many stories, right?
Yeah. We can go on forever.
We definitely could. So we hope that you're being very safe out there and you're making smart decisions, and you're not a loser if you decide not to go to the party.
I mean, the first conversation we had was like, what's the point for your future? How is this going to affect you? Because you make a decision today that could have a lasting impact in the future.
Right. So you go to the party, you don't drink anything, but the cops did show up, and you were right next to the keg. They don't know that you weren't drinking.
Yeah.
You are now at an underage party that there was there. Yeah, if it was your parents' house, you are in trouble for those things, regardless. That's not fair. Sometimes life, that is the law, and this is what it is.
You should have thought about the repercussions of that beforehand, right? You gotta weigh it out.
Which should have thought, shoulda, coulda, woulda. You don't know these things until, but that's why you're here listening today.
Yep.
Well, that's why we say don't do something because you know it will happen. Do something because you don't know.
Mm.
Like, you don't know that this could lead to that, but there's a chance that it could. So let's just choose a different thing that's just as awesome,
Yeah.
that doesn't have that same possible risk.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Go out to a late night diner, but doesn't include alcohol. Boom,
Yeah.
you're already crushing it. And don't dine and dash. There we go.
Yeah.
See? We're already winning.
Good to go.
So what are some of the dating ideas to eliminate risk that you could think of right now?
Perfect. And you just had said one right now. And so, I mean, group dating. I think group dating, going on hikes. We always, in the classroom, put out a list of things you can do. And there's so many, and we ask the students too we give them like a sheet of paper, a dollar amount, and we ask them, hey, you know what? This is the dollar amount you have. You get 100, 25, 50, and 0 or whatever. And so give us a list of ideas you would do with this amount of money.
Mm-hmm.
And they come up with so many, and then we tell them, all right, you see, there is ability to date without putting yourself in a risky situation. And so some of those ideas include maybe a picnic, going out, picnic, taking a walk, getting some yogurt, very inexpensive, maybe stargazing with friends, going out to a movie, maybe a movie night at a friend's house, baking, doing all those different things. Yeah.
I feel like Adrian is the king of date night.
Yeah.
Like, he knows date night. And so, like, for me, when we were my husband was overseas, we did cooking challenges where one of us would have to instruct the other one how to cook over the screen. And it actually caused a lot more fights than it should have, because it was like, use a cup. Well, what kind of cup? Like, yeah. Stir for how long? No,
not like that.
What are you doing? But there's lots of things that you can do. But try to be creative in the sense of, is this making us more emotionally intimate, socially intimate? There's 6 parts of intimacy. So if you're not sure what to do, pick a date that might grow one of those areas. A social. Okay, let's go to this event together with our friends. Emotional. Let's read a book and talk about what, how did that make you think? And it's also mental. And there's a lot of things that you could do to be creative. My husband and I went to the Arboretum and had a picnic next to the pond. And we figured out that that's where all the mosquitoes in Yakima live. And so now we call it Mosquito Lake. And he's like, let's not go there.
But you guys have memory. It's like a fond memory
so
every
many
time.
memories. We actually, because we have very different likes and dislikes, so we took sticky notes and wrote 10 date ideas. And then we folded them up and put them in the jar.
I love that.
And his were green and mine were pink. And so every other date night, we would choose each other's. And so we did some things like a amateur photo shoot in the park where we took each other's pictures. And I wanted stargazing, and that was an epic fail because he didn't understand what stargazing was. But giving into each other's likes and dislikes, and don't hesitate to be creative.
Yes.
A lot of times we just think that love should just be all emotion and romance. You have to be intentional. You have to think it through. Like, okay, next week on Thursday at 6, nothing is scheduled, so we can have our time. And even if our time is watching Netflix, it's our time. And being intentional to make that time to grow your intimacy.
Yes, you have to be intentional. My husband and I have not gone out of town for 2 years because we talk about it. We know where we want to go. We get in arguments about it, but we don't. So finally, I booked us a trip. But you have to be intentional in those things. And one of my favorite dates, when my husband and I first started dating, we went down to the Yakima Humane Society, and you can get a dog and you can go walking with them. And so it was really funny because my dog ended up being really, like, he couldn't make it back. I had to pick him up. He's an older guy, and so, but finding a nonprofit in town and giving back is a really good way to kind of see how you get to meet new people, and maybe you make friends with another couple, and then that's how that stuff naturally progresses. But when you're not being intentional and just kind of letting you're sliding into things, you could look up and be like, what are we doing?
Absolutely. And so, having that line, planning it out, being intentional. And that's also how you discover maybe this isn't the person I want to be with. And go, now that we've done this, actually, I think we're better friends than partners. And then you have to make that journey a different direction.
Yeah, having that talk is okay, and being able to figure out those words will make you stronger. Again, listening to the inner part of you, and it is not a knock if somebody does not want to be with you. Do not try to force yourself or what do I need to change? No, you are beautiful and wonderful just the way that you are. It just means that your personality and their personality are not meshing the way that they need to mesh, and you want to have a healthy mesh, not a chaotic, crazy black hole.
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh, the relationship experience, man, we are just flying through these. So guys, if you've got questions, you've got thoughts, you've got stories you want to share, you want to speak to our professionals, maybe you would like to hire them to come to your classroom. There's the email links and all of that business. And anything else you guys want to say?
No, I mean, we're excited for the next one,
Yeah.
and it's always a good time.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Can't wait to hear your stories too.
Yes, yes. Have a wonderful one. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.